So we used to go once a week. Sundays, we used to get a shower and fresh clothes. Then typhus broke out. If you were reported to the hospital, so that was the end of you. I got the fever, but I didn't want to go to the hospital. And I had a good couple, we call it couples. He was a German, but he was a Polish, he used to live in Poland. They call it the Volksdeutsch, he used to call it. But he was also a prisoner. And so I went to work with my fever sitting like this behind the stacks of bricks to get over the fever. And if he knew when a German officer used to come to check what I'm doing, so he had a signal, he used to scream, "Hey, you lousy people, get to work." So we knew somebody's coming. So we went through this and for a while, and then I got a boil was about this big on my arm here. I didn't want to go to the hospital. One day he said to me, the same fellow, he said, "Come on, I'll take you, I'll go with you to the hospital." So I went with them, they cut it up, they drained it, it was fine. Short time after, the Polish underground attacked our camp and they're trying to free us, but they're unsuccessful. Actually, we could have been free. That was in around January 1944. The Russian army was sitting right out of Warsaw on the other side of the river, the Wisla, for about 6 months and didn't want to come in. They didn't want to give the Polish underground the credit. So they were just sitting there about 6 months. If they would move in, I would have been freed already in January. So anyway, they were fighting all night, and they were unsuccessful. So the next morning, they took us out, and we had to run through the city of Warsaw. Not to walk, but run. They were afraid that maybe they would attack us in the street, just to get out of town. So we got out of town, we started to walk. We walked for about 10 or about 15 miles, something like kilometers, something like that. And we stopped overnight on a field, farm's field, where that field at one time I used to graze cows on that field when we first came to Bloin there, before I went to that first camp. We stopped there, and whatever means we had, a knife, a spoon or something, we dug up some mud and squeezed through a piece of cloth to get some water. So when we left next morning, the whole field was just full of holes. There was no field left. So we start walking again. Next, come to a town where there's a river. So they let us go to the river to get some water. Two of our people crossed, when we went in the river, they just went a little further to the other side. They got shot in the river because they thought maybe they were going to escape. So we got some water and we started walking again. So we walked again for a while. I don't remember how many miles, how many kilometers, whatever. We came across the same river. But at that time, they only let us 100 at a time to get to the river to get some water. And we kept on walking. We walked. Finally, we came to a railroad station where we're supposed to get on a train. We came to the railroad station in the afternoon, and it was raining, very heavy rain. We were there until morning. In the morning, the train came, and again, we were always 2-3 days at least on the train, which normally could supposed to take a few hours to get there, but we were going around and around. And we went to Dachau. We arrived in Dachau. Get off to the same thing every time you got on the trains. Over 50% people would died on the trains. We didn't know. We walked over the dead people, and nothing to eat, nothing to drink. You know, excuse me, tell you that people would drink their own urine to survive. So finally we got to Dachau. Came to Dachau. We were there about 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks. Actually didn't do anything in Dachau because they establishing within about 60 kilometers around Dachau the sub-camps. There were 12 camps around Dachau. So first I went to Camp 1. Was a Camp 1. I worked on a farm for only a short time. Excuse me. Then I was sent to another camp. It's called Camp 7, number 7, which was in the little city of Landsberg am Lech, about 50 kilometers from Munich. Actually, that's the city where Hitler, if you ever know, when he wrote the book Mein Kampf, that's where he was in prison, in that city of Landsberg. So it was Camp 7. Camp 7 was already a better camp for most of us, not for everybody, but most of us. Actually, we were a group like we called, with seniority, the old timers, So we got the best jobs. I had a job working right outside the camp in the kitchen for the German guard, for the guard. So I had a group of 10 people. And then we had usually food left over. The people who go to work, they had to pass by this kitchen where I work. So the food left over, I used to put the food in. We had the milk, like the farmer's milk cans, big, put it in. And in the morning, the people were going to work. I used to hand out some food. One time, the officer from the guard came to I had 2 Germans working with me. And I worked in the kitchen, they were the cooks. But they were different. There were 2 Germans like a National Guard. They weren't the regular soldiers. But they were very good to me. And God comes to the office and said, you have to stop this because you're holding up the people going to work. So one of my Germans said to me, don't worry about it. Forget about what you said. And I kept doing it for a while. Then, so it went on for a while. And then on April 28, 1945, we all had to go back to Dachau. From all the camps, they all had to move back to Dachau. And then we went on a march on the road. We were supposed to go into the German mountains, which is a famous ski resort, the Garmisch-Partenkirchen. It's a famous German. Supposed to go there, and they're supposed to kill us there in the mountain. But on the road, as we were walking, at one point, it was already, May the 1st. We went through a bridge, and the bridge got blown up. But we knew that the American troops are right behind us. We could hear the fighting. So they're right close by. So they blew up that bridge. So half of us came on one side of the bridge, another half on the other side of the bridge. I was happened to be on the other side of the bridge. And they took us in to a forest. And they put us in the forest, and they said, go in there and ask for volunteers to take the sick people into the village, and they put them into farmers, the barn. 100 in this farmer, 100 in the other farmer, and told the volunteers to come, they have to come back. The volunteers one was a friend of mine, and he came back, they came back, and they come back on their way back, they found a dead horse in the snow. So they cut off some pieces from the horse, and his friend came back, and I made a fire, and I went barbecue. That was the best meal in a long time. And during the night, the guards disappeared. So next morning, the German police came in, and they took everybody into that village, everybody. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning, remember, and this is, which is I'll never forget. About 1 o'clock, my first American tank moved in. Then when I came in, they closed up the village because they didn't want anybody else. But that's all I saw was the one tank. But there was a group of 9 of us. So we didn't want to get closed in, so finally we got through and got out and started walking. Because where's the next town? So we walked for about maybe a kilometer and a half. There was a bakery. Found a bakery, so we got in the bakery, everybody took a bread. Everybody got a bread and started walking to see where the next town is. It wasn't too far, there was a town. And we come to the town, and there were three American soldiers, but they were Czech descent. They were very drunk. They were holding on to each other. But I guess the clothes we were wearing, I guess they realized who we are. So one of the Czechs, they say, are you Polish? Are you Polish? I said, yes. Come on. And they took us in to an underground bunker, which you couldn't see the end of it. And anything you can think of was in that bunker. So the first thing, we changed clothes. Everybody took a backpack and put some food in. Then was a row of bicycles chained up. They broke the chain, and everybody took a bicycle. But they couldn't get out of the street, it was after curfew. So we were hopping over the fences. Finally, for a few houses, we lined up at a German inn, but it was taken over by the American troops. They had a kitchen, a American kitchen there. And then in the back of that inn was an empty little house. So we took over the house. And so we were living there. And the next day, we all had the bicycles, but we all had friends from the other half of the group, from across the bridge. They were into another quarantine camp, just a few kilometers away. So we were trying to get to see our friends there, but there was such a big snowstorm we had to turn back. You couldn't go. So this day, about 2 weeks later, there was a lot of us living in the city outside because now when the American troops came into that village, they brought everybody into that city, into a DP camp, displaced persons camp. So 2 weeks later, they said everybody who lives outside of the camp has to move into the camp. So we moved into the camp. We were going back to Munich. And then we took it there to another, it was an Air Force base, made us a DP camp. But there took us there and there, you're on your own. And you can be on your own. If you want to be, you can stay in the camp, live in the camp. And if you don't want to, you can go wherever you want to go. So I stayed there a few days, and then I went back to Landsberg, to the last camp where I was at Camp 7, went back there. And I lived on a farm, because in Landsberg, it was one of the biggest DP camps was in that city, Landsberg. But I didn't want to live in the camp anymore, so I went to live private, and lived in a farmhouse. I lived upstairs, the cows were downstairs. But I had to make a living, so actually, as you say, I was doing black market, So I was there living. I had pretty good, actually, very much better than a lot of people at that time. We had a good life. I had a cousin of mine too. I went back to Poland. Sorry, tell you before. I went back when I